We paid private Christian school tuition. We believed we were buying something different. Then my 8th grader called me from school crying, wanting to come home. And when I got there to pick her up, the school admins were waiting for me. They informed me of the actions that we had to take before she could return to school. And it was all based on what 2 other students reported that she had said. And these were students that she was having trouble with for months. And the administration knew that. This was based on nothing that she had done, but what supposedly she had said. A stipulation of her return was therapy, and that was the moment everything we thought we knew about safe schooling fell apart. This is the story of how we pulled both our kids out mid-year. We lost the tuition, and we would do it all over again. 2 other kids reported something my daughter had said. We still don't fully know what version of events the school received because no one asked her directly. Not with us in the room, anyway. Not with any real investigation. The school's response wasn't to call us and talk. It was an ambush when I went in to pick her up. The school told us that she needed to be in therapy, and it was framed less as a suggestion and more of a condition. I remember sitting there just crying. I mean, we had specifically chosen Christian private school because we believed there would be a different framework. One rooted in grace, in conversation, in involving the family. What we got looked exactly like what we'd heard was spreading through public schools. Here's the thing about Christian private school parents, and I say this because I was one for many years. We tell ourselves a story like, we're not in the system, we've opted out, this is different. And most of them are different. But that meeting showed us that the same philosophy had arrived in our building on our campus with our tuition dollars funding it. It was the philosophy that a school can override a parent's judgment about their child's mental health or any decision. It wasn't the education necessarily that I was objecting to. It was the assumption underneath. The assumption that the school knew better than we did. That external mental health intervention was the obvious response. That our job as parents was to comply. And I thought, if that assumption is already here, what are we paying for? So my husband and I had already been paying attention to what was happening in all the schools across the country. We'd listened to Abigail Shrier on Joe Rogan. She wrote Bad Therapy. She talks about exactly this scenario. The way school-based mental health programs have shifted how schools see their role. Not just to teach, but to identify, assess, and intervene in children's emotional lives. I was floored. Abigail Shrier makes the case, and I believe it, that this isn't neutral. Telling a kid they need therapy based on peer reports of children that were trying to get her in trouble. There was no evidence. This actually causes harm. And I remember thinking when I first heard about that episode, well, thank God we're in private school because we're safe from it. And that's the part that still gets me. Because we were not in some coastal town, state. We were not on either of the coastal states. We were not in a big city. We were in the middle of the United States, and this happened to us. That's the part that still gets me. It's happening everywhere. And we thought we'd already we'd already solved for this. Like, we'd opted out of that system. And then the system showed up in the place that we turned to. And it's everywhere. I promise you, it's everywhere. We have moved to Indiana, and it is in all of these schools, all of the public schools. Back to what we decided. My husband and I talked about it for a few days. We prayed about it. I cried about it. My husband was just angry and outraged. We were so outraged we couldn't believe that this was happening. And then we finally made the call after we got the email that said that she was going to be compelled to do therapy. So we pulled both of our girls out in the middle of the year. We lost the tuition. It was a sunk cost. And it was not a small amount of money. I just feel like it was a sunk cost, It was more than worth it. I rarely think about, oh, we lost the money, we lost the tuition. That was not the point. It was such a violent perspective shift for me and for my family that, the money part I just didn't think about it like that. I was worried about other things. And I want to be honest about what that decision felt like, because it was not easy and it was not clean. There was grief in it. When your worldview shifts so violently, it was jarring. We had a plan. My oldest daughter was 2 years from graduating. So we had relationships with the teachers we respected. Our kids had friendships there. And there's always a loss when you leave a place. But I did have this clarity. We did have a clarity, and it felt like the door had closed. The school had shown us what it believed, that our beliefs just did not align anymore, and they did not have her best interest at heart. So we brought both of our girls home. That was 2.5 years ago now. And here's where my kids are today. My oldest daughter finished her first year at community college, and she has worked regularly since she left, since she left 10th grade. She's doing really well. My youngest daughter, who was 14 at the time, is now, looking to a future of learning a skill and going to a trade school in the fall. Skilled work, real skills, and a future that she chose. Both of my kids work. Both of my kids volunteer. Both of my kids are active in their community through church groups and volunteering. There have been hard days, of course, but both of them are flourishing. So I'm telling you this because when you make a decision that goes against what everyone expects, people look at you like you're making a mistake. And I had no idea how this was going to play out. But the evidence that my kids can still learn, that their life is not over. Kids don't need a specific building, an institution to become who they're supposed to be. Sometimes kids just need you to be brave enough to leave the institution that was standing in the way. Sometimes you just have to challenge the status quo. So if you want to know what the first few months actually looked like the deschooling, we did a long period of deschooling. You want to know about the grief and the adjustment. Nobody told us what that would actually look like. So I'm going to tell you. Why don't you go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the deschooling update. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.